You want to be less wrong, right?
I want to be less wrong. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you're in the right spot.
I'm not actually from South Carolina,
Where are
though.
you from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. You're a transplant.
I don't live here.
Oh,
I'm
Just
a
visiting?
tourist.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, tourist.
Maybe we can get you to come to Minneapolis next.
I did interviews at University of Minnesota in it was July.
University of Minnesota?
Sorry.
University of Minnesota?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Minneapolis is fun because we just had that whole George Floyd situation go on, and it has changed perspectives quite a bit in Minneapolis.
That was definitely a turning point in our society.
Yeah. I don't I don't know if Minneapolis is better for it, but maybe the rest of the world is.
It certainly brought light some issues that had been there for a long time that a lot of people just wanted to turn a blind eye to, I think.
Yeah.
So
There still is some conversation in Minneapolis in the police world that I just had a conversation that said they said if he he hadn't done that to him, the policeman that did it, if he hadn't done that to him, they think that George Floyd would have died from fentanyl. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. Like, why take that stance?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
we
yeah.
should get them to sit down with you.
Yeah. I, 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 I don't know how well I would do.
It might be
Because
hard to
I'm supposed to try
be
to be neutral
objective.
here and
Yeah, yeah.
objective, right?
You fucking idiot.
Yeah, there's a
I
couple
mean,
of there's a few things that are push my buttons and that might be one of them. So all right, Juliet, like I said, my name's Jeff,
hi, Jeff.
and so as David explained, we have conversations with people to see, a belief that they have, if their confidence level, matches their, the reasons they have matches the confidence level,
Yeah,
right?
I'm curious about it.
And so you said you believe that we can. How was it you said? What was it? We create the future or reality, or what is it?
I said, well, I don't know now what I said, but let's say it this way. I I believe we have the power to create the future by what
Okay.
we see and believe in.
All right. So we have the power to create the future by what?
By what we
By what we see,
see
what we
and
see.
believe in.
Okay. So let me paraphrase that. Basically, are you saying, help me out, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that if you believe in something strong enough, and when you say what we see, do you mean physically what we see, or do you mean like a mental mind,
Yeah, mental
a,
mind
a, a
see.
mental
Yep.
mindset? Okay. So if we visualize,
Yeah, it's like a visualize. It's like
well,
it's a lot of times I feel like visualization ends up being sort of a hopeful thing, but but paired with belief. Like if you really believe it's going to happen, if you really believe it's going to happen, most of the time it feels like what we do is we think about what's not going to happen. So we get that too.
what's the difference between really believing something and just believing something?
The difference between really believing something and believing something. I think that one of them is wishful thinking and all your doubts are in there, and the other is you just know it's true.
Okay, others know it's true. Okay, no, it's true. So there's some things. What you're saying, I think, you wish they were true, and some things you know are true.
I think it's more about you want visualization to work, but you can't commit to believing in it.
Okay. So if you really believe in something
Yeah.
and you visualize it and you really believe it, like you know it's true.
Yeah.
Now, it may not have manifested itself yet, right? So
Right.
this is we're talking about something that hasn't happened, but you really believe in your mind that it's going to happen, and you visualize that happening. that that has the power to change the future.
Yes.
Okay. If I were to ask you how confident you were about that, what would you say? And give you a scale to work with, like 0 being there's no way that our thoughts and visualizations can change the future. I'm at 0% and nothing you could say would change my mind about that. Or 100 being I absolutely know 100% that our thoughts and mental attitudes can change the future, and nothing you say or do is going to convince me otherwise. From 0 to 100, where would you put yourself on how confident you are that we can change the future with our thoughts and
I would say
visualizations?
85%.
85%. Why aren't you at 100?
I knew you were going to ask that. Knew you were going to ask that. I the reason why I'm not at 100 is because I feel like there are things that I don't really know that have play in the mix, right? So it's your visual maybe is competing with mine, and you know, it just I think there's things I don't know that affect the mix.
Okay. I like competing visualizations. That's nice. So you're 85%. What is there any main thing that gives you that 85% confidence level? Like if you had to put your finger on it and say that this one thing is the reason I'm at an 85% confidence level, is there anything that you could articulate?
Just past experience.
So experience.
Yeah.
Anything else? But that's not, is that, let me ask you this. If you were to find out that your experiences, you were wrong about your experiences in some way, I don't know what that would look like, right?
Right.
Um, or if you were to find out that experiences weren't a reliable way to determine if something is true, let's say it that way. And
Right.
again, don't know what that would look like. Um, would that decrease your confidence that we have the ability to visualize?
You know, I think what increases my confidence to visualize that is that a systemic effect, right? So I believe it because I have had the experience when I can hone in on that moment when I know that I believed it and I just was okay with everything. I wasn't doubting it, and it it flowed into what I needed to happen or what I wanted to happen. But I think the system of it is that maybe some literature has also reinforced that. Maybe some scientific research has also reinforced that. Now, I understand that from a critical thinking point of view, maybe that I may be um, uh, looking for information that just affirms what I already know.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, that's it. I understand that is at play as well.
That's
So
good. A lot of
yeah,
people don't even have a clue that that's a thing.
exactly.
So that's good. Um, so your experiences. So if if you were to have an experience where you really believe something, you knew it was going to be true, and you had it visualized, and then it didn't happen. Has anything has that ever happened?
Yeah, but I don't know if I fully believed, right? I think
So you think the fault was on yours that you didn't believe enough?
yeah, I think you get what you believe. My feeling is you get what you believe about, and I maybe thought that I had visualized that right,
But you didn't really.
but I was really focusing more on it not happening, and my emotion was in that.
Does does everything that happens in the future depend on us really believing it and visualizing it?
I think everything is, yes, I do. I think that our experience is based on what we believe about ourselves and about what
Right?
we what we believe is true.
So so everything that happens to everybody is a result of what they really believe and what they visualize.
Yeah,
Does that include just random things like a car accident or,
I kind of think so. Yeah.
you kind of think so? How confident would you be on? I mean, let me ask you this: is it 100% of the things that that happen because we really believe it or visualize it, or is there some things that just happen?
I I I believe it's closer to 100%.
So everything,
Yeah.
everything. And the thing that gives you that confidence is your past experiences.
And a system of information, right? So scientific research, documents that books that I've read, things like that.
Okay. So how big of a role do those books and the scientific research play in informing your decision? Like if you had to give throw a percentage, a portion to it, what do you think that would be?
You like a percentage of outside.
Of the total belief. So you're at 85%. So does how much of that 85% is informed by the documents or the studies that you've read? And how much is experience? Because you mentioned
Right.
experience
I
too.
think experience is the majority of
Is
it.
the majority of it.
Yeah. So it's 75.
So if do you have a way to determine if you really believe in something and you visualize it, do you have a way to determine if you could be wrong about it?
You have to be able to measure belief, right? And I'm not sure that is a measurable piece. You'd have to be able to measure what you actually believe in and be very conscious of what that is. Because most of our beliefs are happening subconsciously. We just are not usually conscious all the time.
So you can't think of a way that you'd be able to tell if you were wrong about this?
I would say if I could, I would say, so say I hone in on a feeling of when it worked, right? Like an experience where I was like, that state of mind was exactly what led to this other thing. And
Right,
I've seen that state of mind work for these other areas.
right.
But if I'm fully aware that I am in that state of mind and it doesn't happen, that would prove it wrong. But I'm not sure I'm ever really good at knowing if I'm fully in that state of mind.
So it's that, but a minute ago, I think you had said something along the lines of, you probably just didn't believe enough. So would you have a tendency to say, well, I didn't believe enough? Or would you say, well, wait a minute, I did believe enough, and this visualization thing in this time it just didn't work?
I would say it's less about believing enough, but that I know exactly what I'm believing.
So if you don't have a way to tell if you could be wrong about this, how how do, I guess I'm struggling with trying to figure if you're 85% confident, but you can't tell that there's no way for you to ever tell that you were wrong about it. Does that justify an 85% confidence level if you there's no way for you to tell that you could be wrong?
If the only way that I can tell if I'm wrong is if I know I'm have the full belief in something, I
And it
understand where
didn't
my
happen.
beliefs lie. I know that there aren't underlying beliefs that are compromising that vision. If I know that to be true, which I'm not sure I could ever know, then I think it would be true. If if all of that is in place and it doesn't happen, then I think that would prove it wrong.
But you don't have a way of knowing whether or not you were really in that place.
I don't think in the moment, but in retrospect.
In retrospect, you'd be able
Yeah.
to. So if you had a mindset and you're really in the zone, so to speak, and and it didn't happen, then that would decrease your confidence that we have the ability to do this, right?
Yeah.
But that's never happened.
Well, I'm not really measuring it all the time, but I have, that has not really happened. No. I can usually pretty much determine what my real belief system was or what the underlying sabotager was
Oh, so
for
when
it not
something
happening.
so when something doesn't turn out the way you think, you're able to identify the reason why it didn't happen. There was some doubt you had or something, as you called it, a sabotager.
Yeah.
Um,
Or something happened, a surprising thing happened that I didn't think was leading me to that. But then ultimately, it did lead me to where I wanted to be. But it didn't look like the path I thought it was.
when you say we have the power to create the future, power, can you what does that mean? What is this? Is this like a what do you mean by power?
That's a good question. So I think that we feel when I say power to create the future, it's like individual power to get where you want to be or to be something that you want to be. So individual power to do it.
So is this power to change the future, create the future, as you say it? Is it is it bound by like the laws of physics? Like, I mean, it has to be something in reality, or I mean, is can it be something that's beyond? In other words, can we visualize uh, a cow jumping to the moon and that happens, something like that? I mean,
Well, I would say technically, but at what point can a human being actually believe something so far outside their understanding? So that's why system,
but
the
if but,
system, like if I
okay,
know physics, that might even be a detriment to my belief, right? If I know, if
but if
I,
you could believe strong enough in it and not know physics, then you think that you could make that happen.
I kind of do, yeah.
Um, but if so, anytime that it doesn't change the future, anything that time that doesn't happen, then it's the case that there was something wrong in how strongly you believed it or visualized it. Is that right?
Well, it's not so much how much, like you may think you believe it and you have all those feelings, but the everything around it makes a huge difference. So, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in that? Do you believe in the physics of that happening? Do you believe it? Are you leaning on other people to do it? Things outside of your control.
So it sounds like you're saying that there's some things that are beyond your control that also affect the future.
Well, that's where that 15% comes in, right?
Right.
So, yes, I do. I think it,
Okay.
yeah.
So you said something, a counter competing visualizations. In other words, if I'm visualizing myself um, being married to a person or wanting to have a relationship with someone, but someone else is also doing the same thing, one of them's going to win out, one of them's going to lose out, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't control other people's situation in this visual,
Oh, okay, so it's only
right?
yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's yours. So you can visualize, for me, you can visualize having a super happy relationship. You may have someone in mind, but that isn't in your control.
Can
What's in your control is what you visualize or what you believe you deserve in a relationship.
so this power is it more about visualizing where you're going to be in a mental state, or does it also include the physical? In other words, if I were to visualize myself living, on the battery in a $10 million home. Would that include that kind of a
Yeah.
thing as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but if I, but if you did visualize something like that and you really believed it was going to happen and it didn't happen, it would that be confirmation that we can't visualize things, or would it be the fact that you're just not visualizing it the right way or believing it enough?
Well, it could be a number of things, right? So it could be that I don't have a full belief that I deserve that, or I'm not really or maybe I don't really want that, and I think I want that, so I'm not really believing that. But there's also, it could be like, at what point in time do you stop and say, well, it didn't work? Because
Well, that's my
it
question,
might
because
still be working. It might be still in the works.
that's what I'm trying to figure out, because it sounds like to me you're saying that you, again, I go back to it. It doesn't sound like you have a real good way to tell if you're wrong about this.
There's not a good way to tell if I'm wrong, because it might still be coming.
So you can only tell if you're right about it, but you can't tell if you're wrong about it.
I mean, if I was a data person and I was being able to measure each point of belief system, of timing and all of those pieces, and I could say I can measure that perfect belief in this thing, then then it didn't work, then I could prove myself wrong.
So you'd have to be able to measure all of your minor thoughts
Yep.
and know every subconscious thought, and you can't do that, so therefore you can't know that you're wrong about it.
Well, I don't know if we can. I can't do that personally, but I don't know if we can do that.
So if you can't tell you're wrong, there's no way to ever tell that you're wrong about it. How would you ever find out if you are wrong?
If all those items were in place, like if we truly could measure.
Well, but you said we can't measure, so it sounds like to me you don't. There's no way that you could ever find out that you're wrong about this.
I guess, yeah.
Do you think having a belief is something that you can't tell if you're wrong about it or not? Um, is like um, justify an 85% confidence level. If you can't even tell if you're wrong about it, do you think that that justifies an 85% confidence level? There's no way to tell if you're wrong.
But you put such absolutes on that, right? You say that there's no way to tell if you're wrong. But
Well,
I've said scenarios in which I could tell if I was wrong, even if I say that the scenario, like if I have the same feeling I've had when it worked, like even if that's it,
right.
right? Even if all the other factors, all the other gray areas are not in there, then I would say if I felt that way and it didn't happen, I would be wrong.
But you also said that it could be that there was something subconscious or something happening, a competing visualization, or that other 15% that could be happening. Um, so would you count it up to being wrong, or would you count it up to being, I just didn't really know my own mind, or there's a counter
Or I wasn't
visualization or
doing it
something?
right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, okay. So again, I, I don't. It sounds like that no matter what happens, that you're going to say that this is true, and that you really don't have a way to tell if you're wrong. Because even if you had that feeling, it sounds like what you said, just like you had before,
Mhm.
and it didn't happen, even though that would be evidence that this isn't true, rather than thinking that it's not true, you would just say, well, I didn't fully know my subconscious, or there's a competing visualization or
Or it
something,
hasn't happened yet.
or it hasn't happened yet. Right. Um, do you think it's a good thing to have a test or a method to tell if you're wrong about something? Do you think that's a good thing?
Well, I think we have to be really careful about what right and wrong are, right? Like, if I'm wrong about something, what does that really even mean?
Um, well, in your beliefs, right? So, um, you want to do a thought experiment?
Sure.
Okay, let's do a thought. This
I
might
mean,
be a
I
good,
don't want, I don't, but I do. I will.
this might be a good one.
As I said, I'm scared to do it. Yeah.
Okay, Tic Tacs, right?
Right.
All right. So, is it true that there's either an even number or an odd number of Tic Tacs in that box?
Yeah.
And if you were to say, let's pick one, odd or even, doesn't matter, say odd. You said it's odd.
Yeah.
How would we tell if you were wrong?
We would count them.
You count. So you have a way to do that, right?
Hmm.
So a physical way to actually measure it and say, I could do that.
Hmm.
Do one more thought experiment. If I told you that I own a truck, how confident would you be in that statement if I tell you I own a truck?
Just you right here now
Yeah, I own a
saying,
truck.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much I believe you, right?
Right, so that's why I'm asking.
50-50.
50-50. Okay. What might increase your confidence that I own a truck?
If I saw your truck right here,
You saw my truck. So you want
you showed me the title.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so that's good. What if I told you I owned a Ferrari?
Yeah.
How confident would you be about that?
About the same.
About the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, what would increase your confidence would be seeing my Ferrari.
Seeing the title of your Ferrari in
That's
your
all.
name.
Okay. So you want evidence. You want some kind of tangible evidence, proof. What if I told you I owned a flying Ferrari?
A flying Ferrari?
Yeah, flying Ferrari.
Um,
How confident would you be in that?
well, we do have those helicopters now.
This is a flying Ferrari, though.
Very little confidence.
Very little confidence.
Just because, not because of you, but because
Right.
that doesn't exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought experiment's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point there being that it seems like you do look for reasons and for evidences, right? In general, is that a good way to determine if something is true, to look for evidence and things that are measurable and quantifiable? Is that, in general, is that a good way to determine if something's true?
Yeah. Scientific method, something like that. Yeah.
But in this one area about the power to create the future, we don't have a way to measure or even tell if you would be wrong about it, but yet you're 85% sure that it's true, and you were only 50% true that I owned a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think,
Because I have more evidence in me believing in something and then it happening.
when we started out, you said something about confirmation bias. How do you know that you're not just looking for it to be true and every time you see it, you're chalking it up to that?
I don't know that.
Well, given that you don't know, then you could be using confirmation bias to believe this, and you could be wrong then, right?
No, I don't think I can be wrong.
What you got, David?
I really want a diamond ring to be in that jar.
Yeah.
Could I believe hard enough and make that happen in 10 minutes?
I don't know. I don't know. You wouldn't believe that. You know why?
Oh.
Because you know there's not a diamond ring in there.
So,
So you wouldn't believe it.
so there would
You
be
know
no way
you
for me
there's
to believe
there's
it.
there's the fact in your mind that you know that it's not in there. So it's hard for you to believe it to be true because you have this belief that it's not.
So I can't. There's no. I can't believe it hard enough and make it happen. Is that what you're saying?
Hard enough is a really poor language. It's not so much believing it hard enough. It's just that you believe too hard, if we use that language, that is not in there already.
No, I guess using whatever language you're using to describe believing something enough to make it happen. Can I believe something enough to make it happen? Can I believe?
I mean,
Is
there's
it-
a whole
it
factor of
possible?
questions. Like, do you already know there's not a ring in there? And now you're trying to believe around that knowledge?
'Cause it would be really
No,
cool.
then
It'd
you
be really
can't do
cool.
that.
It'd be really cool.
Because
if
your
I could
belief
believe
system
it.
has already has told you that the stronger belief system has already told you that there's not a ring in there.
Okay,
So no, you can't do that
okay, so it does have
because you
limits.
already
Does have
know
limits,
that
yeah.
there's not a ring in there.
So,
Because
so
it doesn't have limits because what you are already believing in subconsciously, knowing there's not a ring in there, that is your strong belief. So actually, what you believe in is true.
okay. Do you know if there's a ring in there or not?
Me personally, no.
Okay, so you don't know if there's a ring in there.
Right.
Could you believe it enough to cause a ring to appear there in 10 minutes in the future?
No, because I don't believe there would be a ring in a coffee can sitting in front of me. A huge part of my belief would say that that can't be true.
Okay,
Just like you can't have a Ferrari that flies.
so there.
The majority of my belief is it's not true
Okay, so what?
because it's just a circumstance that I would be like, that would be so far out of the norm.
Yeah.
So I don't actually believe it.
Could you believe that there is a dollar bill in there?
I could, yeah, that's that's
make it
easier to believe,
and
right?
make it appear in there in
I
10
can't
minutes?
make it appear, but what I can say is it's easier to believe something that we know could very easily be true. Like, do I have a quarter in my pocket? Well, that could easily be true. So it's easier to create a quarter in my pocket because it's within the realm of belief.
Okay, so if it's outside of the realm of belief, that's the limit?
I think the further away from your hardened beliefs, the easier it is to visualize.
Okay.
Right?
So if I'm understanding you right, you're saying that um something doesn't happen just because I believe it?
Everything happens because you believe it, right?
Everything?
Everything. Yeah. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Majority of time we're thinking about things that are not, you believe that they are not true or they're not there or it won't be created.
Let's say I did believe that there was a diamond ring in there.
But you would only believe that in this circumstance if you put a ring in there.
Okay. So is it the belief that I have that the ring is in there, or is it the evidence that of me placing it in there an hour ago?
Because I would say that if you have the belief that there's a possibility some jeweler thief was running around this neighborhood and he was stashing jewelry somewhere. So there was an actual belief there that this could be
That'd
true.
Evidence of the thief, right?
Well, I mean, it's sort of evidence, but it's like he could have left this ring anywhere, but it creates it slows down the belief that there's not. It opens up the opportunity that there is.
What's your definition of belief?
That's a good question. It's kind of like evidence, but it's more like a knowing.
If something really mattered, if it was life and death, would you prefer to rely on a belief or on evidence?
A life or death.
Yeah, something really important.
So I don't think those are two different things. I think if you have evidence,
Okay.
that feeds into what belief is. If you have evidence, it raises your belief.
What's the difference
The
between
knowing.
belief and evidence?
The
in your
difference.
mind?
So evidence is very tangible. It feels like scientific.
Yeah, me placing the ring in there 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
that'd be evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could go down all of that tangible pieces of whether or not that's evidence, right? You go, this is the evidence in this true crime case or whatever it is, right? That's evidence. But at some point you hit a point where you have to know, you have to believe because you don't have evidence.
So when it would
So
really matter-
evidence just tells you what you believe, maybe right or wrong. Maybe it's not even evidence. You think it's evidence, but it's not.
Okay. So when it would really matter, would you prefer to rely on tangible evidence or a belief?
A belief, because that's evidence will feed into that. So evidence is just a part of what helps me believe.
Okay. Last question. What process do you take to rule out coincidences?
I don't think there are coincidences.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun, Juliet.
I'm
You have any
scared.
questions for
Too
either one
scary,
of
was
us?
it?
No, but I love what you're doing. I think it's really
You have any
awesome.
questions for either one of us?
I have to dig in what you're doing, but I'm just really impressed with you doing it. And so what is the drive? Why do you do it?
Well, the reason that I do it is I value critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
I think that that if more people had critical thinking skills, our world and our society would be a better place.
Yeah.
That I think that the more we share a common reality of the world around us, the better we are able to communicate with one another and define common goals that we want to do for ourselves and society. And so I do this to kind of model what critical thinking might look like,
Yeah.
to ask questions, to be skeptic,
Exactly.
be skeptical of claims, and just to demonstrate that, because I think we, again, I hold critical thinking and skepticism in high regard and think that those are two tools that, if we had more of that in our society, that we would come a lot further to solving a lot of the world's problems.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It's kind of like power of attraction, right?
Well, I'd say probably along those same lines. Yeah. Yeah. Not much difference. I think uh it's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
For sure. Thanks a lot. Really
Have a
enjoyed
great
it.
day.
Thanks for your time. Y'all have
Have fun with it?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do too.
It was great. Um,
Did you ask all the questions that you wanted to?
yeah, I was struggling a little bit when she said she couldn't really have a. She said she had a way to know she's wrong if she had this mindset that she'd had before and it didn't happen. But then she said, if that was the case, if I thought I had that mindset and it didn't happen, then she would just chalk it up to like she didn't believe hard enough or there was some subconscious something.
Right.
So, and I didn't want to be an asshole about it. I didn't want to press
Yeah.
too hard, but I kept saying, well, sounds like
Yeah.
you don't really have a way to know that you're wrong.
Yeah.
And then when I asked her, you know, if if a belief we have, if we don't have a way to tell that we're wrong about it, does that justify an 85% confidence level?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah. Um, there's a disconnect there somewhere. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure. I'm not quite sure where. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
And then when you asked her about the difference between belief and knowledge, or belief and evidence, I was thinking of belief and knowledge. You know that you know, knowledge is being a subset of belief. You know, you can believe a lot of things, but you might not only know a subset of that, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and
And
I kind of tend to you know, JTB for, you know, justified true belief is knowledge. I know some people push back on that, and have different criterion for what they call knowledge, but as far as I can tell, justified true belief is
That's your standard.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in justification, obviously being evidence, data points, some type, um, uh, I guess I think I've always thought that justified true belief is a little bit of a misnomer because you got the word true in there.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I sometimes say justified belief,
justified belief, yeah. Um,
justified conclusion.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But not having a way to know that you're wrong about something. I mean, to me, that's a red flag, but it didn't seem to be an issue for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's no coincidences.
Yeah, exactly. No coincidences. Um, everything. So everything has a reason, and the reasons are how we think about things, right?
I think if we had more time, I may have gone into like, did things happen before there were minds to believe it?
That would have been a good question. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
did dinosaurs exist? Um, did dinosaurs exist because we believed them?
Right.
Because everything that happens is
Of what we believe.
somebody believing something, right?
Yeah, and she even went to the physical. Like, I said a cow jumping to the moon, and she said, yeah, it'd be possible.
Yeah, there's no limits.
There's no limits.
There's
It's
no
like
limits
the diamond
except
ring.
for the diamond ring.
Yeah, well, that's because she said that you. How's it going? Good.
Chair's open.
You'd like to have an interview?
We're not reasonable.